So we're talking with Matty Blake. He is one of the hosts for the podcast Rated P for Paranormal. Matty, how you doing?
Shower beers. Can I say that
yeah,
anymore?
you can say that. No, you can say that. Just to let people know, Matty and I worked together. He was part of the Matty and Nick show at WAAF back in the day, and we had a brief time working together, which was just heaven, Matty.
Yeah, not just part of, Mike. Let's call me what I was, the creator of that fabulous success.
Yeah, that's right. He's the creator, the producer, the writer. He did the whole thing. Sure, you can blame him for that, right?
You could make the argument that Nick and I broke that station because we came there and then it became a Christian station. So,
right.
Blame me.
Well, now you are part of this podcast, Rated P for Paranormal, and
Yes.
you guys basically cover movies and television, but mostly movies and television shows that have to do with the paranormal. And now, recently you've been focusing on horror movies because of Halloween, and that's the gist of the podcast, right?
Exactly right. It's to cover anything paranormal that shows up in film or television, or sometimes just pop culture. Like we've talked about paranormal books, and we've done documentaries that are about the UFO phenomenon, things like that. But basically, the main theme of the podcast is if it's a paranormal themed film, we rate and review it. And my partner grew up on sets. His name is Anthony Arkin. He is Alan Arkin's son.
No way. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The last few episodes, or actually from what I was looking at, a lot of them, you've been covering horror movies, obviously in the Halloween season. So, all these lists come out around this time about, what are the scariest movies, what are the best movies for Halloween. And so that's what I'm going to ask you right now. Give me your top 3 scariest movies. And they don't even have to be horror. They don't even have to be horror movies. What are your top 3 scariest movies?
I mean, it's such a hard question to answer. I will answer it. I'm not going to be evasive, but there's best and scariest. You know what I mean? So I'd call Exorcist the best, I think. Maybe hasn't aged as well to be the scariest anymore for me, but I would still put it number 1 because there's still just so many. We just rewatched it to do a recent episode, and there are scenes where I literally was uncomfortable watching it as a grown man because of what it deals with. So I'd still put Exorcist number 1. I would actually put Texas Chainsaw Massacre number 2. I think that movie is so deeply unsettling, and it's not a perfect movie at all, but man, there's something too real about it. It's almost like he came upon a real house like that of these people and just started rolling film. And I know we've done some research on it, and it's really famous in the horror community that set was hot. They were there too long. They were working too hard. So there's this kind of nastiness to the movie that is really chilling when you understand that the actors in real life, like the human beings, were really uncomfortable and grumpy and tired and upset and often scared. So I put that number 2. And number 3, and this is a little controversial, but I think the most scared I've ever been in a movie theater was the final scene of the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, my God, yes.
And I think just because of what that film did to film, it has to be somewhere, at least in the top 5. It's in my top 3. It changed the way movies are made.
The Blair Witch Project, I like to call it Jaws for hikers, because I'm an avid hiker. I love getting out in the woods, but for about a month or 2 after watching that movie, I couldn't do it. Even in the daylight, middle of the day, some local park here in Worcester, I'm just like, I don't want to be alone in the woods.
That's such a great comparison. I had friends that saw me at the theater and never said anything and left bundled sticks on my car.
Oh!
Yeah.
As far as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre goes, I think part of what made that movie so scary was the low budget, because it had almost a documentary feel to it, which I guess you could say maybe influenced the Blair Witch movie, because that was obviously made to look like, obviously handheld documentary filming and stuff. And I think that's what made Texas Chainsaw seem so real. Because, and I'm sure it was due to budgetary reasons. They only had a certain amount of time to do it. They didn't have a lot of resources, and it just gave it that grittiness you were talking about that made it real.
Yeah, my partner Tony in the podcast, he always says about certain directors or certain films, you don't feel like you're in safe hands. And that I get that feeling when I watch Texas Chainsaw. It's like they're breaking all the rules. Nothing's as it should be. You get the sense that the movie kind of wants to hurt you, wants to traumatize you. There's no relief. There's no like, oh, okay, they got to the safe place, and this is what there's going to be this horror cliche now. It's like, no, this guy's going to burst in with that chainsaw.
Yeah.
There's no escape. It's relentless. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Now let me give you my top three, and I just want to get your thoughts. My number one, and it's a recent movie, but it's one of those movies I just thought I was scared to death. I thought it was great, but I hope I never have to watch it again. And that was Sinister with Ethan Hawke.
Yeah.
And fairly recent movie, but just the subject matter of kids killing their parents. Maybe that's because I have a daughter who I'm truly afraid of, and so it's like and Ethan Hawke does such a great job, but it was just so disturbing. I think the word disturbing more than scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great one, and in the horror community, it's gaining traction. It's one of those films that's like aging really well. People are realizing like, hey, this kind of slipped under the radar here. This is like Shining level disturbing. This is really good. So I think that's a great call.
And then my number two would be the First Exorcist. That was the first movie that truly scared me, and I was a young child when I first saw it, and it took me I had it into adulthood where it was hard to watch that movie. Now I can watch it like you. I can watch it now because like I mentioned, I had a daughter who's thrown up all over me in her time, and so I can kind of relate to that whole thing. But and then my number one, and I put this up there, scary, but also to me the greatest horror movie of all time, and that is the original Haunting.
I believe we covered that. I think we did. If not, it's on our list. Great film. That's a great call.
And the genius behind that film to me was you never saw what was causing all the disturbances. You only heard it. Mm-hmm. And through the acting, the great acting, you kind of felt what was going on also. And nobody scares you more than yourself and your own fears. And I think they played on that really well.
You hit the nail on the head. That's one thing we've discovered in the Rated P for Paranormal journey is that we keep gravitating towards film where it's like less is more. Blair Witch, you never see the Blair Witch.
Right, right, yeah.
So you're exactly right. What you make up in your head is so much better and more terrifying. It's the Hitchcockian rule. It's Alfred Hitchcock's. What you make up in your head is worse than what I'm going to show you. And conversely, the same thing is true. We're constantly disappointed by great films or potentially great films that are scary up to a certain point, and then they like overshow you the ghost or the demon, and they use CGI, and we're like, no, you were on to something. We didn't need to see it. So It's a great call by you.
Right. And that also has to do something with a recent episode you guys had covering, I thought was great. You covered all three movies of The Thing. And
yes,
the original The Thing was, when was that? Was that the 50s? Or was that early 60s? Yes. That was the 50s?
Early 50s, like right after Roswell, actually.
Yeah, right? And same concept. You never really saw or got a good look at what was terrorizing these people. Not only were they secluded, in the Arctic or Antarctic, but, you never really saw it. And then there was John Carpenter's The Thing, which that's one of those movies, like if I'm channel surfing or whatever and I see that it's on, I'll totally stop and watch the rest of it. It doesn't matter at what point, because it's just such the actors are great in it. Kurt Russell is awesome in it. There you actually got to see something though, but it was still terrifying nonetheless, because the things that you saw were so like beyond, my imagination anyway.
But what's interesting though, it's a fascinating thing, because you only see mutations of us and animals. So you never see the alien, quote unquote, is not an alien that we see. You see a dog turn inside out. You see people turn into these horrible creatures that break apart and turn inside out and turn into these spider monsters. So see, it still follows the rules, despite all the body horror in that film. It still follows the rules that we don't know what this alien is. Is it a cell? Is it a mutation? So it's still, what you don't know is it's worse in your imagination, and it turns into these. So it kind of has its cake and eats it too.
And like your partner on the Rated P for Paranormal podcast, Anthony, I agree. The Other Thing movie, I'm not even going to waste any more time on it. Just going to push it aside. There's no need to bring it up. It's like Blues Brothers 2000. To me, that movie doesn't exist. That was like a tear in the fabric of time, and somehow it slipped through.
I agree on that call. It's like how the new Halloween Kills is just ignoring all the middle Halloweens. Just none of that happened.
Right. Right. What do you think of Rob Zombie's movies? Because to me, he seems like a polarizing person. Some people I love his movies, but there are some people that think they're trash. What is your take on Rob Zombie as a director?
I don't think there's trash, but I just think I've got a thing against, and mea culpa, this is my own personal bias. I just got a thing about rebooting franchises like this. I just think it's unnecessary at the end of the day. I'd rather see Rob Zombie's vision of a new killer, a new world that he creates. And so, whatever, there's great moments in it, but at the end of the day, it's like we're just muddying this story that was so perfect in the first Halloween. I don't need more. Again, I'm going to quote my partner. He goes, "Why does everybody keep trying to explain Michael Myers to me?"
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Yeah.
Yeah. What I didn't like about this new one, Halloween Kills, is a few things, but one of it is they inject some mythology that happened on that first night of the first movie. And so now every time I watch the first movie, I'm going, well, okay, so I know that this is supposedly happening outside right now, and it just muddies the whole thing. Right. I think it does a disservice to probably what is arguably could be in our top three, the first Halloween.
Right. The first Halloween and the first Friday the 13th were great. And I think it has to do with what we were talking about with the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that's because they were made on such a low budget. It gave it this grittiness that I don't think they were planning on it, but it inadvertently made them more scary. Yeah,
the kind of accidents, if you will, quote unquote, that happened in that low budget process is what makes it so special. Like what they couldn't do is what makes it so stripped down and horrifying. The effects are all practical, pretty much. Like there's no CGI, there's no nothing. So it makes it so real. And
probably the best part of that first Halloween movie is a naked late 70s PJ Souls. And that's probably one of the greatest artistic achievements of all time.
I was thinking Donald Loomis's performance, but whatever.
Hey, whatever, Matty. Just because you're an actor and stuff doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. All right, so let me ask you this. Now that we've talked about some of our favorites and what we think are great movies, worst horror movie ever. I know there's a lot of bad ones, but there's a lot of movies that are bad, but still it's like pizza. They're bad, but they're still pretty good. But what's like the one that you're just like, this is just garbage?
It's not the worst ever, maybe, but it's the most frustrating in a way because it's got actually a really good reputation, and it stars Kevin Bacon, and it's called Stir of Echoes, and this film actually has kind of a cult following, and a lot of it's not ironic. People think it's a really good, scary movie, and Tony and I reviewed it, and we both just belly laughed through the whole review. I mean, he tries to do like a Jack Nicholson Shining thing, and it just doesn't work. Everyone's doing a bad Chicago accent, and so there's worse horror movies that have been made, to be sure, but when you look at the budget and who was in it, and what was expected of it, and its reputation, and then you watch it, you go, really? People like this?
Well, I got to tell you, and it may not be fair because the one I'm going to mention is a sequel, and it's one of the very, very few movies I've ever walked out of. And you guys actually did an episode on the first movie recently, and I have to, for my call, that would be American Werewolf in Paris.
Great call.
It was like halfway through, I was like, I'm done. This is ridiculous. It's stupid. The actors obviously didn't want to be in the movie. And I know it's mid-90s and the special effects weren't that great, whatever. It was just terrible. And I think it's because American Werewolf in London was so great that this was like, it was just not even a fraction of what American Werewolf in London was.
That's a great call. And, the thing about sequels with great movies is you don't have to be great. That's the mistake I think they make. They get too ambitious trying to match the first one. You just got to stay in the world of it and be respectful. And too many movies get too big, like, say, Exorcist 2, which we just reviewed, which is a mess every way.
But Exorcist 3 was, to me, that was awesome. That scared the crap out of me.
Well, it's funny you say that. We have a new episode dropping today on The Exorcist 3, the third. We did all three, Exorcist 1, 2, and 3, and we have joining us on the episode, Tony and I, Tony's wife, Amelia Campbell Arkin, and she's in it. She plays a little girl in the dream sequence, so we interview her about her experience being on the set with William Peter Blatty.
Oh, my God. That was, to me, that made up for Exorcist 2.
Definitely.
Well, listen, Matty, this has been great, but before we go, I want to let people know that Matty Blake is also the host of the Treasure of Oak Island.
Curse.
Oh, it's the Curse? I thought it was the Treasure.
No, they're looking for a treasure. It's called The Curse of Oak Island, which is also paranormal in its own right.
Is it really? Because maybe it's called The Curse because you're never going to find the treasure.
How dare you?
I'm sorry, I give Matty a hard time about this all the time. But there's a new season coming on, right?
Yeah, so Tuesday, November 2nd at 8 p.m., you will see my 1-hour kickoff special, Drilling Down. It's actually perfectly titled for this conversation, Mike. It's called Dawn of the Dig. This is my 1-hour special.
I get it.
Yes. And then the season 9 premiere right after that at 9. So 8 o'clock, History Channel, Tuesday, November 2nd. This coming Tuesday, or next Tuesday, you can see me on the History Channel. Yep.
Awesome. All right, well, check out Rated P for Paranormal. Awesome podcast. And Matty Blake, thank you very much. I hope that you're able to enjoy some ball golf before the season ends.
Now, see, that's the most scary thing that you've just said to me in this whole thing.
What, Matty? I know you're a ball golf enthusiast. You're much like the movies. You're an expert on ball golf. You know?
I'm going to send Leatherface over there to the Pike to pay you a little visit.
Oh, has there been any golf-themed horror movies, like a Caddyshack horror movie of some type?
You know what? You just planted the seed. There will be before I retire.
All right. Well, I want 10%.
Hey, man, congratulations on all your success there. As I said to you before, I don't want to live in a world where Mike Hsu ain't on the radio, so congrats, brother.
Well, thanks a lot, Matty. I appreciate it, man, and congrats to you for the podcast and the TV show and all the other stuff going on. So I appreciate you jumping in here.
Anytime, brother. Thank you.